Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we'll be setting up an XCP-NG server on OVH's Eco line of dedicated servers, getting Zen Orchestra installed quickly and preparing to install OPNsense. As a quick overview, XCP-NG is a free and open source virtualization platform that is based on the Zen hypervisor. It is a great choice for home users and small businesses who need a powerful and reliable virtualization platform. Why use OVH's Eco line of servers? They are a great choice for budget-minded users who still want a reliable and powerful server. This line is composed of KimSurfy, So You Start, and Rise to Your servers. KimSurfy and So You Start, while still owned by OVH, had dedicated websites and panels previously. They have now been both consolidated alongside Rise to create the new Eco line. These servers have reduced bandwidth and fewer options compared to the higher end tiers that OVH offers, but worked perfectly for use cases such as this. So, to begin, we will go ahead and go to ovhcloud.com. We can go to bare metal and VPS, Eco dedicated servers, and for my choice here, we're going to do a So You Start. And we're going to pick the Xeon D1520. It's 4 cores, 8 threads. It is certainly not the fastest processor around. 32 gigs of RAM is plenty, and 2 480 gig SSDs should do what I need. So we'll click on order. Give this a minute here. So the server is hosted in Canada, North America, Canada, $21. It's on a special offer right now. We've got the Xeon D, 32 gigs of RAM, 2 480 gig SSDs and a soft RAID, 250 megabits unmetered public bandwidth. So we're going to go ahead and do a 3-month engagement on this server to lock in these savings because it is a promotion price. And do note that there is a setup fee on the server for the full retail price that is $30 that we'll see in a minute on the final screen. And you can see they've got that 30% off offer code. So the server's $21 a month, and there is a one-time $30 setup fee. We'll hit continue. We've got all this information, so we're going to accept and then hit continue. All right, so that's being processed, so we can click on track my orders. All right, well, while this is loading, we're going to go ahead and go over to XCP-NG.org. We'll go ahead and hit download, and let's see if we can go to other old releases, mirrors. For this case, we're actually going to do 8.3, and the 8.3 beta 1 ISO is what we're going to want to download. Actually, we're going to download the net install. It's a little bit smaller. All right, so it's been a little bit and we're back. It seems that when we were doing the initial setup that OVH might have been having a little bit of an issue getting everything set up. So now we'll go to IPMI. I did reach out to OVH support because they advertise partial support for IPMI on the Eco line of servers. So you may not get a server that has an IPMI module in it when you purchase one. It's a bit of a luck of the draw as far as what server is next in provisioning, from what I was told by support. So if you want to guarantee that you will have an IPMI module, that you should use a Rise server or above. So we're going to go ahead and download the Java applet. There was a little bit of setup that needed to be done with this. So the first thing you will want to do is make sure that you have ICT Web. So that's going to be ICT Web 1.8.8, you can use the MSI. You're also going to want to download the JDK8 here from Eclipse. When you launch your ICT Web, you can run this ICT Web settings configuration and make sure that you use the JDK8 for running this. And then you can open up your downloads, and you can see we have our virtual media here. So we can go to virtual storage. We've got our device 1. We're going to use an ISO file. We can open our image. In our downloads, we'll grab the XCP-NG Beta 1 Net install ISO that we downloaded before. We'll hit plug in and OK. We're going to go ahead and discard our changes and exit in the BIOS. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit F11 to go into the boot menu. And then we're going to go ahead and hit enter setup. We're going to go over to boot, and we need to add an option for the IPMI mounted virtual media DVD drive that we just added. And then we'll go ahead and hit save changes and reset. We'll wait for the server to restart. Now we'll hit F11 for the boot menu one more time, and we can pick our virtual CD drive. This will take a second to load, but once it does, we can click install. We can accept the end user license agreement here. Then we'll go down to software RAID in order to create a RAID 1 volume of these two SSDs. Tap space to select them, and then tab over to create, enter, and then select OK. So create the RAID array using MD. We can tab to OK and then hit enter. We also want to select this for the virtual machine storage using ext. We'll select HTTP, and then we will select IPv4. We will do DHCP. This will configure the network interface to download the repository to files. And we can leave this at default and tab our way to OK. This will then search the repository. We can live a little dangerously and skip verification. Go ahead and set a password for the root account of your XCP-NG install. Then we're going to select our primary networking interface. I'm going to select ETH0. Here I select IPv6. Don't do this. There's a good bit at the end that takes a while to correct. Leave this as IPv4. You can leave it on DHCP. You can set your hostname here if you would like. I'm going to leave the rest DHCP. I'm going to select my time zone, America, and then New York. We will use NTP, and we will trust OVH's setting NTP over DHCP, and then we can select the XCP-NG install. This will take a while to happen. Mine took probably about a half hour, 45 minutes. So while this happens, I did make a note earlier on selecting IPv4, not IPv6. My intent was to use the IPv6 address for XCP-NG and then pass along the IPv4 address onto the OPNsense VM, and that doesn't work as intended. Down the line, I end up ordering a new IP address for the server. So skip the IPv6. It is supposed to be supported in XCP-NG, and it likely does work, but doing it on OVH was not as simple as I was expecting it to be. So don't make the same mistake I did and just use the IPv4. So now that I've fixed the mess that I created for myself by selecting IPv6 for XCP-NG, I can open up Chrome and go to that IP address and bypass the warning certificate, and we can see that XO Lite is up and running, which means we have a successful installation for XCP-NG, and then we can move on to setting up the rest. So before we go ahead and start configuring the server, we're going to want to get an additional IP address ordered that we can assign to the OPNsense VM in order to get a LAN IP. We'll purchase one additional IP address. We don't need an additional block. Single IP address will work, but you can pick an additional block of 30 all the way down to a 24, ranging in price from $8 to $512. I just need a single IP address, so we'll go that route. We'll do our $2 a month. And we will accept and continue. All right, and order is processed. So we should be able to go back to our account and do a quick refresh on this. This took about 10 or 15 minutes to actually show up before I got the email due to the load on OVH. So I'm going to fast forward this through you guys and we'll pick up. All right, so in this one, we're going to go ahead and do a virtual Mac. Type is going to be OVH, and this will be sys prod FW01. You're going to want to use the OVH virtual Mac type, and you can put the host name of your computer or the virtual machine that you're going to be assigning this to. It's mostly just for your record keeping, so you know what this virtual MAC address is corroborated to. Go ahead and refresh this, and we should be able to see the virtual Mac. There it is. So we're going to select it, copy it, and we'll keep this for later. And with that, we're going to move over to our SSH session. All right, so we are now remoted into our XCP-NG server that we have set up on OVH. So we can go ahead and get the configuration started. This would be a little bit easier, well, actually a lot easier if you had Xen Orchestra already set up. But in this instance, we're going to pretend as though we don't have that set up and can't get it set up. So first things first, we're going to want to create a place to store our ISOs. Make dir. So I'm going to just drop that in media ISOs. Then we're going to want to change directory there. We're going to want to go ahead and download the latest version of the OPNsense ISO. That's compressed. You'll notice it's a .bz2, so that's a compressed image. So we will go ahead and unzip that once it is done. All right, so now we can do bzip 2, and we'll go ahead and put the file path in there. All right, that is complete. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create the internal LAN network for this. So we'll do this with XE network -create name -label. That's going to be internal LAN. And we have the UUID for that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it because we're going to need it later. Next thing that we're going to want to do is go ahead and create the new VM. We'll do that with XE VM install template equals other install media. You can see the backslash there to escape the space. New name label equals mo-sys -prod FW01. And we can see the UUID there of the new VM. We'll go ahead and take that down also. Next, we will confirm that the VM did get created, and we can see it there, and we can also see the control domain running, which is perfectly normal. Next step, we want to do an execd-list, which should show us just the guest tools, which is correct at the moment because we still need to create the new SR. So that'll be XE create name dash. So we'll do name -label equals local ISO type equals ISO device config. We will do location equals and that'll just be media /ISOs like we created earlier. Up here, media /ISOs. And then we'll do content type equal ISO. Okay, we got to do device config legacy _mode equals true. There we go. So we'll go ahead and copy that, and we want the UUID. That'll be used later, and we'll do our CD list, and we can see our OPNsense ISO here, which is perfect. We're going to want to take down a note of this ISO name and store that. And we want to do an XE network list just to confirm that we have what we're looking for. So you can see right here, I named this OVH WAN, and here we have internal WAN, and you can set the name of the network by doing an XC. You can do that with network XC-param set. You can do UUID. Go ahead and put the XC network RAM set UUID. Put the UUID of the network, and then you can do name dash label equals OVH. You can call it wide area network, just so it shows something different when I do my XC network list. But then I'm going to change that back to WAN. And you can see now it's back. And we want to just do a quick check on our storage repositories. DVD drive is fine. Local repository is good. There's our local ISO storage. So you can see here's our local storage and the UUID that we're going to be using. So the next thing we want to do, now that everything is kind of set up, we want to go ahead and I'm going to make this a little bit easier on myself by setting a bunch of variables here. So you can see I'm going to be setting a UUID variable, a name variable, an ISO variable, a network variable, a MAC address variable, and an SR variable. This MAC address variable is the MAC address that the virtual IP is set for on the OVH panel. The additional IP address that we bought that'll be acting as our WAN interface for OPNsense. I'm going to go ahead and paste that and hit enter one more time. And then I can make my life a little bit easier here. So I can do XCVM. First thing we have to do is we want to add a disk to our virtual machine here so we can actually boot. So we'll do XCVM disk add SRUUID is going to be our storage repository. VM is just going to be name. My disk size equals 64 GB, and it'll be device equals 0. Next, we want to do XCVM memory set VM equals UUID, and our memory is going to be 4 GB. Next, we'll go ahead and set our CPUs. XCVM-param set. It's going to be UUID equals UUID. vCPUs max equals 2, and vCPUs at startup equals 2. You may only need one of these, but these are the ones that I use to make this work. Next, we want to add the ISO to the CD drive. We can do that with XCVM RAM set. Nope, sorry. XCVM-CD add UUID equals UUID. CD-name equals the variable we set called ISO, and device will be 1 in this instance. Then we want to make sure that we boot to it, so we'll do XC-param set. That'll be HVM boot policy. That'll be BIOS order, and UUID. What we want to do is create the WAN interface. That'll be XC VIF create VM UUID will be UUID. The network UUID will be network, like we set earlier. The MAC address will be that MAC address that we created earlier, and device will be 0. And there's the UUID of the VIF we just created. Now we want to do a quick XC network list, just to make sure that we have the right UUID here, because we want to go ahead and I'll create a new one real quick. That'll be LAN equals that UUID. So we can create a very similar way here. MAC will go away, and UUID will be LAN. And we want device to equal 1. So that'll add 2 interfaces, one WAN with that specific MAC address to pull the IP address from OVH, and a LAN interface that we can connect to the network that we created earlier. So we can now run an XCVM VIF the list, and since we just have the one VM, it's a little bit easier. So you can see we've got our device 0. Oh, this actually needs to be adjusted. So I need to make, I'm going to do this. WAN equals that, because that is our WAN here, our WAN interface. So I need to actually change that VIF. So that should be XCVIF. I'm guessing there should be a, let's see, VIF move UUID equals UUID, network UUID equals WAN. Actually, this UUID will be the UUID of the VIF. So we want device 0 in this case, so we'll use this UUID. And then we can do XCVM VIF VM dash VIF list. And we have device 0 on OVH WAN and device 1 on internal LAN, so we're good on that. Now there are a couple of adjustments that we need to make, and I'm going to copy them over here for simplicity's sake. We're going to set the VIF parameter, other config, ETH tool. We're going to do TX off on both the WAN and the LAN because these are virtual interfaces. I think I named them different though. Yeah, the UUID I supplied was invalid because those are not set entirely correctly. So let me run a XC network list real quick here and grab this WAN and this for our LAN. We'll go ahead and set those as variables, and then we can rerun those. Oh, yes, because these are the VIFs. So you actually would want to set it for these UUIDs here, because you're setting it for the actual VIF, the virtual interface. So with that done, we can go ahead and let me move over to Zen Orchestra Lite here. And we can log in if I can type my password correctly. And we can go over here and we can see that the firewall is off. Now I can go to console, I can go to change state, and I can go to start, and we can reload the page. We're booting into OPNsense for the installer. We can start manual interface assignment. We do not need to configure lags. We do not need to configure VLANs, but we do know that the interface ending in 7E is our WAN, so that'll be XN0. And then we'll do XN1 for the LAN interface. We have no optionals to create, and we can proceed. Right, so we can go ahead and log in as installer. OPNsense. Configure with default heat map. I'm going to do ZFS, even though it's a single drive, just because I can use ZFS checkpoints. Yep, we're going to go ahead and overwrite that. We will have to input that IP address that we purchased earlier as a static IP address. They use that virtual MAC for security. All right. We'll set a root password for this. And we can go ahead and complete the install. Now what we can do is let's go download an Ubuntu desktop ISO real quick. Copy that link. And we can now move over to our, go back to our SSH window real quick. And we'll move CD back to media ISOs. And we'll do a wget. grab that ISO real quick from Ubuntu. All right. And we can go back to our Zen Orchestra. Or not Zen Orchestra, XLite. So then we'll log in with root. Password we set earlier. We can go ahead and set interface IP address. WAN. Do not set via DHCP. We're going to enter the IP address information for the IP we bought from OVH. It's going to be a 32 for the bit count, and for the gateway, if you purchased a single IP, it's going to be the first 3 octets followed by a 1. If you bought a block of IPs, they should send that information over to you, and we'll use no for the rest. Let's dump ourselves into the shell, and let's see if we can ping out to the internet. We can. So with that, we have a functional firewall set up on our OVH server, and it's ready to go ahead and get configured. This video is already running a little bit long, so we'll have a dedicated video for setting the rest of this up. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. If it's been useful, give it a like, give it a subscribe, and I'll hope to catch you in the next one. Thank you much.